She promised America the truth. She swore she had the client list sitting right there on her desk. She looked into the cameras on national television and told every single person watching, I have it. It is right here. We are going to review it. We are going to release it. The names are coming, and then one by one, every single promise Pam Bondi made about the Epstein files collapsed. Publicly, humiliatingly, in front of Congress, in front of the victims, in front of the American people, and ultimately in front of the President of the United States himself, who decided he had seen enough. On April 2nd, 2026, Donald Trump fired Pam Bondi as Attorney General of the United States. And the reason that matters, the reason this story is bigger than just another cabinet shakeup, is what the firing actually exposes about 14 months of the most anticipated, most manipulated, most deliberately mishandled government investigation in recent American history. This is the full story. And it starts where it has to start, with a promise. When Pam Bondi was confirmed as Attorney General in January 2025, she walked into that job with a very specific mandate from the American people across party lines, across the political spectrum, from Trump's MAGA base to Democratic lawmakers to Epstein victims and their advocates. That mandate was simple: release the files, tell the truth, hold the powerful accountable. For years, the American public had been told that the Epstein investigation contained information that implicated powerful, well-connected, wealthy individuals. People in politics, people in business, people with access to the highest levels of government. The question was always the same: who knew? Who participated? Who was protected? And by whom? Bondi's first move was to feed that expectation with maximum theater. She went on Fox News in February 2025 and delivered the line that set the entire internet on fire. The client list, she said, is sitting on my desk right now to review. Right now. On my desk. That statement exploded across every news platform, every social media feed, every conversation about Epstein in America and around the world. People believed her. Victims believed her. Congress believed her. The public believed that finally, the most protected secret in Washington was about to come out. What actually came out was a show. Bondi and the DOJ invited conservative social media influencers, friendly online personalities with large followings, to the White House. They handed them binders. Thick, impressive-looking binders filled with documents. The influencers posted their reactions online. The content creators told their audiences that the Epstein files were being released. And then people actually read what was in those binders. And what was in those binders was almost entirely information that was already publicly available. Documents already in the public domain. Redacted pages. Material that contained nothing new. Nothing revelatory. Nothing that came close to matching what Bondi had implied was sitting on her desk. The backlash was immediate. The MAGA base, the very base Bondi was supposed to satisfy, turned on her. Conservative influencers who had been handed those binders felt used. Republican lawmakers who had championed Epstein transparency felt betrayed. And then came July 2025. The DOJ released an unsigned internal memo. And that memo said there is no client list. There never was a client list. No incriminating document. No list of names. No credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals. The thing Bondi had said was sitting on her desk in February. The DOJ said it did not exist by July. That is not a minor miscommunication. That is not a bureaucratic misunderstanding. That is the Attorney General of the United States going on national television and telling the American people that she has a document that her own Department of Justice later told Congress does not exist. You do not get to call that an accident. You do not get to call that a misremembering. That is either a deliberate lie told to the public to manage expectations, or it is a level of incompetence in the nation's top law enforcement office that is disqualifying on its own terms. And it got worse. Because Congress passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act, a law that mandated the DOJ release every single document in its possession related to the Epstein investigation. The act gave the department a 30-day deadline. The DOJ missed the deadline. Then it released millions of pages, but with heavy redactions that lawmakers from both parties called unacceptable. Then it was accused of releasing documents that exposed the names and personal information of Epstein's victims, the very people the investigation was supposed to protect. Their full names, their private information, nude photographs, released in documents that were supposed to be handled with the most extreme care. Gloria Allred, attorney for numerous Epstein victims, said Bondi's departure was long overdue. She said Bondi had betrayed victims. She said Bondi had destroyed the trust in the DOJ that survivors had a right to expect, and then came February 2026. The House Judiciary Committee hearing. The moment where the full collapse of Pam Bondi's credibility played out in public, on camera, in real time. Bondi sat before Congress, and the performance she gave in that hearing room was not the performance of a law enforcement official who had done her job. She made personal attacks on lawmakers who were questioning her. She pivoted to the economy when asked about Epstein. She refused to answer direct questions about ongoing investigations. And in one moment that Epstein survivors and their advocates will not forget, she refused to look the victims in the eye. A congressman asked her to turn and face the survivors who were sitting in that hearing room. And Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States, looked away. By March 2026, the House Oversight Committee had subpoenaed her. And here is the detail that makes that subpoena so extraordinary. The vote to compel Bondi to testify was bipartisan. 5 Republicans joined Democrats on the committee to force her deposition. 5 members of her own party looked at what Pam Bondi had done with the Epstein files and decided that congressional accountability was more important than party loyalty. Republican Congressman Thomas Massie said publicly, "I support Trump firing Pam Bondi." Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace said Bondi handled the Epstein files in a terrible manner and seriously undermined President Trump. When members of your own party are cheering your firing, that tells you everything about how badly this went. On April 2nd, Trump learned while riding in a car to the Supreme Court that he was being removed as Attorney General. He kept the information from her for 24 hours. She sat next to Trump at oral arguments on birthright citizenship. She attended his primetime address to the nation on Iran that evening. And all the while, Trump had already decided she was finished. Sources close to Bondi described a president who had been privately calling her weak and ineffective, who was frustrated not just with Epstein, but with her failure to successfully prosecute his political enemies, failed cases against former FBI Director James Comey, New York AG Letitia James, California Senator Adam Schiff. Trump wanted scalps. Bondi delivered disappointment. Georgetown law professor David Cole put it with devastating precision. She came in and did the master's bidding, he said. And she did it poorly. Now Todd Blanche, Trump's own former personal criminal defense attorney, sits in the Attorney General's chair. And his very first public statement about the Epstein files was remarkable for what it revealed. Blanche went on Fox News and said, "I think that to the extent that the Epstein files was a part of the past year of this Justice Department, it should not be a part of anything going forward. Not a part of anything going forward." Fox News host Jesse Waters laughed. He said, "I'm not sure you totally get what people feel about that." And Waters was right. Because the American public, the Epstein victims, the congressional investigators, the people who have waited years for accountability, are not prepared to accept a new attorney general walking into the job on day one and telling the country that the most important accountability case in recent American history should not be part of anything going forward. Here is where the story stands right now. Pam Bondi is scheduled under subpoena to appear before the House Oversight Committee on April 14th for a deposition under oath. She has been fired. She is no longer Attorney General. It does not matter. The subpoena was drafted by Congresswoman Mace with deliberate legal precision, naming Bondi personally, not by her title. A subpoena directed at a person follows that person regardless of where they work. And Mace has been explicit. Accountability does not expire when a job title does. Bondi will not escape accountability and remains legally obligated to appear before the committee under oath. The deposition is happening. The questions will be asked. Under oath. On the record. And those questions have only gotten sharper since the firing. Because firing Bondi did not make the underlying problem go away. The DOJ still has not fully released every Epstein document. Lawmakers still believe the releases are incomplete. The redactions are still being challenged. The victims are still waiting. And the new man in the chair, Todd Blanche, is the same person who just told the country this should not be part of anything going forward. As if the American people can be told to simply move on from the most significant sex trafficking case involving the most powerful people in the world, with zero prosecutions of any of Epstein's alleged clients, zero accountability for anyone in his network beyond Ghislaine Maxwell, and a government document release that exposed victims' private information while protecting the identities of the powerful. Epstein survivor Annie Farmer said it with the clarity that only someone who lived through this nightmare can deliver. This is not about a single person, she said. It is about a government and judicial system that has repeatedly failed Epstein survivors. She is right. And firing Pam Bondi does not change that truth. It only confirms it. Because the question was never really about Pam Bondi. The question has always been about the names that were never released. The prosecutions that never happened. The client list that was sitting on her desk until it suddenly did not exist. The documents released to influencers and binders that contained nothing. The victims whose private information was exposed while the people who paid to abuse them remained protected. The closed-door briefing that Democrats walked out of in under 30 minutes. The hearing where the Attorney General refused to meet the eyes of the women she was supposed to fight for. Pam Bondi is gone. But the Epstein files chaos she leaves behind is not going anywhere. And on April 14th, under oath, before Congress, with a subpoena that follows her by name, not by title, the questions are finally going to be asked the way they should have been asked from the beginning. Whether the answers are finally given, that is the only question left.